Bipolar disorder is more acceptable because some celebrities have come forward and they openly said they suffer from bipolar disorder. So there is a positive publicity about it. However, when it comes to borderline personality disorder, where we see a lot of impulsivity, lack of control over the emotions, it is not properly understood. Without social support, we cannot expect the patient to take full responsibility. By the time we become to adolescents, we don't know which direction to go in our life. We may struggle for a little while and eventually our path becomes clearer and we develop a sense of identity of what we are.
Hello, Dr. Rupesh Adimulam. Thank you for coming, even though you have busy schedule coming from Canada. Thank you for joining the Impact Show. Because we've known each other for a few years,
Yes.
Can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me here. So it's my privilege and I honor to be part of this today. Yes, you asked me a question to introduce myself. So I don't know how to introduce and where to start, but try to make it as simple as possible.
Yes.
So my name is Rupesh Adimulam, psychiatrist practicing currently in Canada. So that is one kind of introduction of myself. But we are here as a psychiatrist, right? So let me say that's my identity now. So if I have to talk a little bit more about myself, having originally come from India, where I completed my graduation in medicine, then I gained experience in psychiatry for some time in India, and then I moved to United Kingdom. Then I did train myself as a psychiatrist, and from 2010 until 2022, I practiced as a psychiatrist in Chelmsford. And as a part of my career in psychiatry, I also had other interests, mostly the teaching and training. And I also played a role in Royal College of Psychiatrists.
Excellent.
And also to develop some awareness about mental illness, I have contributed to writing information in the patient.co.uk. So those kind of things. Eventually, I moved to Canada in 2022, and currently I'm practicing in British Columbia in a place called White Rock as a psychiatrist. So that is my brief introduction as a psychiatrist. But within the psychiatry, I have very varied interests. So one of the interests I have is in the borderline personality disorder. I think we are here to talk about this today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now,
thank you. Since we are the Impact Show, I would like to ask the first question as what impact do you want to create?
Okay, so it looks like an interview to me. Okay, that's fine. So the impact, being a psychiatrist, what I want to happen through this show is I want the awareness to develop about this particular condition called borderline personality disorder. Because in my observation, patients do not necessarily understand the concept of borderline personality disorder. It's not very well understood, not only by psychiatrists, but also patients. And there is a lot of stigma attached to this. Many people feel confused about their struggle. So what I want to happen today is, with this show, I want the public to develop an awareness about this cruel condition and also give a hope that the treatment is available and there is a hope that they can get on with their life.
Yes, thank you. Borderline personality disorder. We're going to refer BPD,
right? Yeah.
Short. Is it all about emotional imbalance or mood swings? In layman terms.
Okay, so the word borderline personality disorder is not actually known as borderline personality disorder everywhere.
Okay.
So there are two types of classifications which are existing across the world. One is what we call ICD-10. Second one is DSM-5.
Okay.
DSM-5 is more followed in the United States and Canada and few other countries as well.
Okay.
Mostly in the United Kingdom and the European countries, it is ICD-10. The word that describes this condition is called emotionally unstable personality disorder.
Okay.
So the borderline personality disorder, emotionally unstable personality disorder, both are same. The wordings are different. So because we are doing this show from the UK,
Hmm.
let us call it as emotional unstable personality disorder.
Sure.
That means it's also borderline personality disorder.
Sure.
Coming to your question, is it all about mood swings?
Hmm.
Mood swings explain to some extent.
Hmm.
Okay, the core component of this particular problem is some dysregulation in the emotions.
Hmm.
So usually we don't understand the mood and emotion, right?
Hmm.
So we try to say that in the layman's word, mood and emotions are both are similar. But in the psychiatric problem, mood is a little bit different. Emotions are slightly different. So our emotions can range from anxiety to anger, right? And also feeling happiness to sadness. These are the range of emotions.
Correct.
When these emotions are dysregulated, that is a core part of the borderline personality disorder. Definitely, but that doesn't solely explain the term borderline personality disorder.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. What are the primary risk factors
Okay,
for
so
developing BPD?
BPD. So let us talk a little bit about what is BPD first before we go into
The risk
risk
factors.
factors.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So as I said, the most common presentation is emotional dysregulations. People often say that their emotions change very quickly. For example, in the morning, they may feel sad. By afternoon, they can be very happy. By evening, with the slightest issue, they can become irritable. It's almost like a shower of emotions. Okay. So that is a core component. It's like a torture, right? So we want to be quite consistent with what we are doing. They might appear quite doing very well, but inside they might be struggling a lot. That is one component. Second thing is a chronic sense of emptiness. Even though outwardly they appear to be okay, they feel empty. That something is not right. Something is not there. They also feel abandoned. So when they are in the relationships with the people around, they feel constantly threatened by the presence of people around.
Okay.
That they have a fear that they are likely to be abandoned by them.
Okay.
So to cope with that abandonment, they go to any extent to preserve the relationships. So that's why they put themselves into risky relationships. They cannot cope with being alone. Okay, that is one aspect. Second, another point is impulsivity. So that means they make decisions in their life very often without thinking about the consequences. Because of that, they face the consequences. They are not necessarily the consequences that they would like to appreciate. So that is another issue. Another thing is one of the most problematic thing for them and the people around is self-harming. So they self-harm. Sometimes patients, they punch themselves and very commonly they cut their body parts deliberately to inflict the pain to cope with some psychological pain. Okay. They frequently get into suicidal thoughts. So they may take a series of overdoses or some other ways of trying to end their life. That is one aspect. Also, there is a sense of loss of identity. They don't know what they want to be. So they are quite unhappy about themselves. Because of this kind of presentation, their relationships are affected, their work is affected, and they are not happy with themselves. So basically what happens is they are not happy and the people around them also not very happy. So that is a kind of a lifelong thing. So when we talk about other mental illnesses, they come and go. For example, let us take depression. For example, say if I develop depression, I'm okay today, but I may go into a state of depression, feeling very sad, don't feel like meeting people, isolate myself. It may last for 2 weeks to few months. During that time, I see everything negative. Once I come out of that stage, I'm just like same old Rupesh. So people can see a specific change in overall my presentation for a period of time.
Okay.
It's a state.
Correct.
Whereas borderline personality disorder is a trait. It is seen in most of their adulthood. So that's how we need to say. So that means it's a constant issue they are battling with. Yeah. So from there, let us go into why people are developing this. The risk factors they're all in the childhood. So for any mental health problems, we look at three sides. Biological, that means the problem may be in our genetics, or the problem may be the issues that happen in the time of development in the womb, or some other factors, anything that happens in the childhood. So genetics or our issues with the brain or neurochemicals, they're all genetics. So the second thing is the experiences. These are the very important things, the early experiences in the childhood. So even though so many theories are put forward, none of the theories actually are able to explain everything in detail by one factor. So that's why we have to look at the various factors.
Okay.
So as I said, biological factors do play a role.
Yes.
One of the common things is maternal depression. That means if mostly the mother suffers from depression, that increases the risk of this particular condition, right?
Correct.
So the depression manifests in the form of change in the behavior. Especially when the baby is out of the womb, what is the baby looking for? The care, tender love. So let us go back to not as humans, as animals. The animal world is full of threats around. I'm sure you must have watched the National Geographic Channel. When the baby is out, the predators are around.
Correct.
So the baby cannot continue to live with the fear all the life. The baby has to develop some sense of security, the trust around the surroundings that comes from the care that the baby receives from the mother. Okay. If the mother is suffering from depression at that time, obviously that is likely to cause a significant neglect to the care of the baby. So within the first year, baby doesn't develop the ability to trust in a love relationship. So that continues as the baby goes along. The next thing is, if that continues to happen and again, the neglect continues. So that means the experiences that baby has received in the first 1 year, if it is repeatedly exposed to that same environment, that doesn't give the opportunity for the baby to develop trust. And again, any sort of abuse, it could be sexual or physical or some other, or emotional or neglect, any sort of abuse that happens in the childhood that doesn't give the baby the opportunity to develop the trust and also regulate the emotions. The abuse could be either from the father or mother or a brother or a teacher, anyone in the trusted relationship.
Correct.
Okay, so and again, the next thing is the bullying. If the bullying happens in the childhood, especially in the school, that affects the relationship formation with the peers around. Okay, so let us look at emotional development point of view.
Sure.
A 4-year-old child, the child wants a chocolate. Child cannot wait. Child wants a chocolate immediately. If the father or mother gives a promise that, okay, you do something, I'll give you a chocolate 6 months later.
Reward.
That doesn't work because the reward is not immediate. It is happening 6 months later. The child is unlikely to understand that. So, but as the child grows older, the child develops the ability to wait for the things to happen. Unfortunately, that ability to regulate the emotion is lost when the child is exposed to the trauma.
Correct.
Okay. So let us look at it. So sometimes when we feel very anxious, we can't register what happens around. Okay. And we also can't learn. So there are periods when I was feeling anxious, opened the book and tried to read it. I kept on reading, but at the end of the day, I don't know what I have learned. Imagine if that happens repeatedly in the childhood. So the ability to learn to control the emotions is lost and the consequences will continue. So in essence, if we have to say, yes, definitely there is a degree of biological explanation. But what we see is more of social explanations and also psychological explanations. It's mostly the issues that happen in the childhood repeatedly. They manifest slowly from the childhood and they extend into the adulthood. That's what it is.
Yes.
I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, definitely, definitely. You were saying shower of emotions, and morning could be this, afternoon could be this, and evening could be some other thing. Can those emotions can be immediate, like within like few seconds, few minutes as well?
Yes. So I think you say spot on that. The commonest thing that my patients tell is, and the family around who come along with the patient to me, they say that their emotions change from minute to minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. Yes, not all the patients are not uniform, but if we ask this question, I ask a question. Okay, how often does your mood change? Yeah, it's frequent. Does it also happen like happen, changing from minute to minute. Yes, that's the one. No?
Okay.
So that means their emotions can change very quickly.
Hmm.
That's why people around them also don't understand. So, for example, if I get into a sad mood, the people expect them to be in that mood for a period of time. But if I continue to remain in that sad mood for days together, obviously people don't understand why this person is sad. Let us put it in this way. Suppose if I lost my exam, okay, so that's a kind of a sense of failure, right? So you're expected to be sad. But if you continue to remain sad for days and days and days together, obviously something is not right. But I'm sad to a point that I don't feel like living. And after 3-4 hours, okay, I'm fine, let us go for a party. How would you feel?
Yeah.
So you find it difficult. Oh, come on, this guy is talking about suicide.
And now he wants
Now
to
suddenly
go
wants
out.
to go to party. So the people don't understand. Yeah. So that's why their emotions, that's why they are called different with different names. They call them mental, they call them emotional. So different words are described. So that's why patients also do feel confused.
Correct. Correct. Thank you. What is prefrontal cortex role in developing BPD?
Okay. It's a good question. So the prefrontal cortex, let me explain what is prefrontal cortex.
Sure.
Okay. So for the viewers, okay. So the brain, the front part of the brain called frontex. Within the front part, the foremost part is called prefrontal cortex. Okay. So that plays a crucial role in two aspects. One is the social cognition, emotional regulation.
Okay.
So a lot of information comes from brain damaged people. For example, if someone meets a road traffic accident and there is a big blow onto the brain, if the front part of the brain is damaged, they have seen a change in the patient's personality. So that means they struggle to regulate their own emotions. They become impulsive. They can be very irritable. And also they lose the social inhibition. Social inhibition says, we are talking to each other. We respect the each other's dignity, and also we give respect to the space between us. It's a kind of a social reciprocal relationship that is also lost. Okay, so definitely from that information we have come to know that the prefrontal cortex plays a significant role in controlling our emotions and our behavior around people. However, when it comes to borderline personality disorder, where we see a lot of impulsivity, lack of control over the emotions, it is not properly understood. Okay. Even though, yes, a lot of studies are happening, but to say clearly that there is a problem exactly in the prefrontal cortex and that is leading to it.
Okay.
So probably in future, we are more likely to get more information. Because if you look at, for example, let us say in the brain damaged people, we can see some evidence of the damage through MRIs or some other techniques. When such things happen at the neurochemical levels, it is very difficult to see exactly what's the issue. But obviously, with the new advents, we are able to see it.
Yes.
But when it comes to borderline personality disorder, it is not proven that there is a problem there. But we all agree that there is some problem, but we don't know what exactly it is.
Okay. Can we blame social media making an individual susceptible to trends or peer pressure?
Trends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or peer pressure from friends or neighbors or somewhere social gathering.
Yeah.
The pressure of them using the social media. If you don't use it, then you're kind of isolated.
Yes. So this is a very good question. So, but social media is a very broad term. Okay. So we humans, we are social animals. So we are using some sort of a medium to communicate with each other. So now we are referring to social medium. It's more of electronic devices which are linking two humans.
Yes.
Or group of humans together. Let us talk about that in the context of borderline personality disorder. So social media, it has so many good factors. There are also negative consequences to that. Let us look at them. So social media is again used as a power of used as a communications tool, right? Cyberbullying happens. Okay. And social media also connects people together. When a child or a person who has susceptibility to develop borderline personality disorder, they also struggle through the social media of the traumatic experiences. So from my experience, what I have seen is, because it connects people easily, because the impulsivity and their inability to wait for the things happen, the children or adults who are prone to develop borderline personality disorder are more likely to use social media because it connects people easily.
Yes.
For example, let us say 20 years ago, when there was no social media, people had to use phone to contact. Prior to that, there was not even that. Now social media gives a quick access to each other. So there the risk is there. Second thing is, again, whatever the human experiences are happening, they are happening through social media. So let us say 20 years ago, the bullying used to happen in the school or at home, somewhere else. Now social media is a very quick tool to use the bullying. So, and again, as I said, the patients with borderline personality disorder, they struggle with the relationships. They cannot cope with the sense of abandonment. Okay, social media gives them that opportunity to not to feel abandoned. So, if they are in a abusive relationship, that is sustained because social media, because that increases the abuse chance. So, if you put it in this way, for the borderline personality disorder, social media could be contributing to it, and is also perpetuating. That means it maintains the problem. And the studies are coming up to show that social media is used against borderline personality disorders. For example, with the bullying, they are forced to commit suicide as well. So in that aspect, yes, social media doesn't have a positive impact in borderline personality disorder patients if it is used inappropriately. But we can also create the impacts of social media. Let us say we are giving this opportunity, this social media, right? What we are doing social media.
Yes.
This might improve the awareness about the condition. So,
Correct.
but it could also be negative. I hope it answered the question.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Most of us strive for identity crisis. Is it a core trait of borderline personality disorder?
Right. Okay. So I think I should have given much more clarity. So let us go through some more symptoms of it.
Sure.
We talked about emotional dysregulation already.
Yes.
We talked about chronic sense of emptiness.
Yes.
We talked about abandonment. We talked about self-harming. We talked about frequent suicidal gestures, right?
Yes.
We also talked about the irritability and anger, right? Difficulty in controlling their anger. We also talked about forming the relationships and also maintaining the relationships. One of the issues are about identity. I think we briefly touched on that. So one of the common things is they find it difficult to which direction to go.
Okay.
So we need to be a little bit careful here. So having gone through adolescence, I'm sure you also know, by the time we become to adolescence, we don't know which direction to go in our life. We may struggle for a little while, and eventually our path becomes clearer and we develop a sense of identity of what we are.
Correct.
Okay. But if that continues for years to years, then it is an issue.
Yes.
So one of the core component of borderline personality disorder is having an issue about their own sense of identity. We all have different types of identity. First, gender oriented identity is one aspect, or nationality based identity, or religious based identity, or professional identity. Our relationships are based, our identity also based on relationships, right? So, but we are very clearly aware of our own identity. And for example, here I am sitting as a psychiatrist and also as a good friend of you, but I am able to differentiate these two together. But when it comes to borderline personality disorder, sometimes they get confused. So that's why one of the common things I have noticed is they struggle to maintain the work or the education. I have seen a patient. He knew that he was struggling with his own emotions, so he wanted to understand through psychology. Started doing psychology, but didn't feel that was for him. Then he was trying to understand things more in intellectual way. He went into philosophy.
Okay.
Couldn't cope with that. It's giving more sense of difficulty for him. So then he started self-harming more because he didn't know which direction to go. That was giving sense of anger because all his peers were moving forward. So he was not able to make a decision. Then he started feeling that I'm a failure, self-harming. So that is one aspect. And one of the common things, gender oriented or sexual orientation. But we cannot call someone having an issue with the sexual orientation or gender identity issues as borderline personality. They can also happen, but that doesn't define.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a we should see it as an overall problem, and we should not come to the conclusion just based on the turmoil the person goes through during the adolescent. We need to have good number of symptoms together, and they should be observed over a period of time, not just a situation. For example, as I said to you, when I feel depressed, I may feel like a failure. I feel like I'm a useless person, and I isolate myself. My friendships are affected. If you see a snapshot, they all meet the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, but that should be happening over a period of time. Okay. Yeah, that's why
Yes.
more careful information has to be taken.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Thank you. How do we recognize borderline personality disorder,
Yeah.
and what are the treatment options?
Yeah, I'm looking for this question starting from the beginning.
Sure.
See, as I said, the people around don't understand this problem. Okay, so the common thing is, as awareness about mental health is growing, people get confused about borderline personality disorder and also bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is more acceptable because some celebrities have come forward and they openly said they suffer from bipolar disorder. Okay, so there is a positive publicity about it. So, because they know about it, the patients who struggle with mood swings, they also start thinking that, okay, I have two poles in my mood. Either I'm happy, I'm very sad. So, as my mood is between the two poles, I might be having bipolar disorder. So, but good thing is, at least they are trying to note that something is not right. Okay, but we need to say that both are not same. Both are completely different. Actually, bipolar disorder is not a very positive condition, but socially more acceptable. Okay, so what I would say is the person who is going through that turmoil of a shower of emotions, it doesn't matter. Even if they believe that they have bipolar disorder, better to seek the help professionally. The psychiatrist will be able to clarify what it is and the treatment can be offered. And the people around, if they see their family members struggle with any fluctuations in the mood frequently, no matter what their view is, better to ask for a professional's view rather than labeling them. Unfortunately, when we use the word personality disorder, we identify that with something wrong with the person rather than attributing this to a problem. If I have a bipolar disorder, they think he's a fine person, but the problem is the illness. When it comes to personality disorder, we identify the disorder with the person. That's why this condition is not welcomed. I think we need to let our viewers know that this is a cruel illness.
Yes.
With the support, we will be able to bring a change. So, yeah.
And the treatment options?
Treatment options. Yeah. So, for every problem in mental health, it is multidimensional or multi-layered. So, let me give an analogy.
Sure.
If you take a tree, it has leaves and the small branches, and there is a trunk and there is a roots. So, what the patients present to us are like leaves and small branches. Okay. The trunk is their experiences, and the soil and the roots are actually their early childhood experiences and the genetics. So the treatment is multi-layered.
Yes.
Okay. So when the patients are having some serious symptoms which are causing significant distress, especially in crisis, medication does help. But medication does not help in the long run. But again, here, the patients who struggle with this problem, they cannot wait for the things to happen. That's why if the medication help in the critical point in their life, because it has worked, they start feeling that, okay, I need medication. So one of the challenges is to not let them associate with medication. But again, traditionally, we have been associating illness and medication together. You take any practice of medicine. Okay, if the medication was prescribed, that is more acceptable. If the medication is not prescribed, that means problem is with you.
Yes.
We should dealing that. Yes, medication helps, but medication is not the only one. Then what is going to be helpful? Here, just like any other person, any illness can only get better once the person has taken some sense of responsibility. That means they need to take the ownership of the problem. Okay. So in addition to the professional's help, the person, the individual who is struggling, should start appreciating that something is not right with me, and I am in charge of my care. Okay. So when they start feeling that, the treatment is more of psychological. There are different psychological approaches are available. However, the more commonly used ones are cognitive behavior therapies and dialectic behavior therapies. When it comes to therapies, cognitive behavior therapy, which is nothing but the interaction between our own thought processes, our behavior, and our mood, how they are all interlinked. So that is the aim. But not necessarily all the patients are geared up to work on that, because the moment they start focusing on the thoughts, which are so painful to accept, they push them back. So not necessarily. So we need to prepare them for that. Dialectic behavior therapy is more actually in use, and also I support that. It has got 4 components. Okay. One is a mindfulness. So either we live in the past or in the future. That moment in time, what is happening with my body and their mind, that is being mindful. Okay, so helping them being mindful. Without having any judgment about our own self, just experience it, helping them. Other thing is emotional regulation, helping them to understand how to regulate the emotions. Yeah. Distress tolerance. Okay. Because of this, their condition, they are more likely to experience distress. How to tolerate the distress. Last point is interpersonal effectiveness. Okay. How they can be effective in terms of working the people around. Once they have achieved these 4 steps, they are prepared to cope with the stress that comes along with therapy. Then they can go into the next level, trauma focused therapy. Okay. Going back to the childhood, as I said to you, so we need to superficially leave some those things. So medication helps. But the personality aspect, the trunk, nothing but some experiences, some with DBT. Once they have come to that level, they go to the deeper layer, which is a trauma focused work. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So these are the main treatments. Obviously, other aspect is social support. Without social support, we cannot expect the patient to take full responsibility. Look, this is your problem. Get on with your life. It doesn't work like that. I think as a society, we need to be supportive of them.
Correct. Correct. Thank you. From your experience, because you worked in India, you worked in UK, and at the moment you're working in Canada, is there any particular race or age group or geographical location have more tendency to develop BPD?
Yeah. So when it comes to an understanding of illness, we rely on statistics. In certain places, it is not properly understood, so that people do not come forward and seek for the help. So the countries like India or other countries which are still developing, the concept of mental illness, the way we see in the Western world, is different there. So they do not necessarily understand the concept of borderline personality disorder, especially people living in the villages. They don't understand what it is. So that's why the number of people seeking for the help is less. So we don't know exactly the incidence, that means how this condition presents. The statistical information is not available. It doesn't mean that it is not there.
Correct.
Okay. But slowly things are changing. Having come from India, so I can say one thing. So in 2003 and 4, around that time, when I started talking about the impact of abuse, my own friends who are also doctors, they disregarded that idea. They said, no, this kind of abuse doesn't happen in our
In
place
India.
because it's so difficult and sensitive talk about. Now you see in any Indian media, the discussion is happening about that.
Yeah.
So that means the more information is coming. Whereas in the UK where I practiced and Canada where I am practicing, I can see this condition very prevalent, and we are able to understand it. Even these two countries, 20 years ago, the number of people coming forward help was less. So now it appears as if their number has gone up. No, the number has not gone up. It is only coming to the surface. So in that way, in the balance, we can say that no race is protected, but when it comes to it is gender, in female gender, it presents more. It doesn't mean that male are immune. I think when you look at the traumatic aspects uh, in various countries and various cultures, the way girl children experience the life is different from male children. Probably there is some bias as well, but more information is going to come in future. But at the moment, we can say that good number of women who struggle with this condition compared to men. So other risk factors are also present. For example, childhood ADHD, autism spectrum disorder. I'm sure you heard about these two.
Yes.
They also put any kind of developmental issues because their experiences are different. For example, let us take a child who is having ADHD, who struggles to learn and who struggles to maintain interpersonal distance in the relationship. If children are struggling with ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, they are also at higher risk of developing borderline personality disorder. Let us talk about ADHD. In the ADHD, they do struggle with concentration difficulties. Their learning is affected and their behavior with the peers is affected. They are more likely to be rejected. They are more likely to experience bullying from others. So that means one problem also become a problem for the development of this problem. So the concept of ADHD is well understood, especially from the pandemic time. The concept of ADHD is more in discussion now in the public domain. So all these factors do influence presentation of the illness. So in essence, we can say that no race is immune. More information needs to come out.
Yes.
So that's what it is at the moment.
Sure.
I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you. That's quite a lot of information.
Of course it is.
And it's so intense. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they have a question or they want to know more? Probably they don't get information from other websites. So how can they get in touch with you?
It's a good question. So it's not about they getting in touch with me. Getting in touch with the appropriate professional. That is very important. Okay. So as my work is very much limited to the place I work, which is White Rock, I may not be accessible to, or my service is not accessible to everyone.
Sure.
It's only accessible to the people where I work. But there's a lot of help is available around. I can say about that. See, if you look at Royal College of Psychiatrists in the UK, he has produced several leaflets. Anyone who wants to know more about this illness, they can go to Royal College of Psychiatrists. Just in the Google, they can put Royal College of Psychiatrists, borderline personality disorder. It explains everything what I have told in more in detailed way.
Sure.
There are leaflets that about the treatments and everything is there.
Sure.
But the first thing they need to do is contacting the right person. If they feel that okay, they need help, it is immaterial whether they have borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder. It doesn't matter. As I said, I feel that there is something wrong with me. I need help. The first point of contact is general practitioner. Okay.
Sure.
So the general practitioner tries to screen the situation and based on that make an appropriate referral so that mental health team gets involved. It's a teamwork. It's not just psychiatrist. We all work as a team. Then what we need to know is the crisis line. Both in Canada and United Kingdom, there is a crisis line. They can Google, for example, someone living in Essex, they can Google crisis line, there is a crisis support. They can contact. Or the emergency services. In the worst case scenario, they need to go to accident and emergency department for the support.
Sure.
Okay. So using the appropriate support.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say rather than leaving it for longer, however trivial it appears to others, ask for help
Sure.
rather than trivializing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
No,
It's
thank you
much
very much.
pleasure. Thank you.
I hope it has addressed some of your
course.
questions.
Yes.
But more information, you can leave the comments, and obviously I will be able to add on to that as well.
Sure. Thank you.